Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the inaugural UOnline Open House. If you are just joining us, my name is Tori Brignolo, and I'm a Senior Enrollment Advisor with the University of Miami's UOnline online graduate programs. Happy to have you here today, and in this next and final session for the day, we're going to speak about a little bit about the Master of Professional Accounting program, and more importantly, to those prospective students who may be considering a career in accounting. So whether you have a background in accounting or not, the UOnline programs here offer a variety of options to advance your career with things like helping you earn your CPA or other accounting certificates. And here, definitely happy to welcome Seth Levine. He's going to be our faculty member. He's going to be talking a little bit more about this program here. So just a brief background on Seth Levine. He is a three-time University of Miami alumnus. He earned his bachelor degree in business administration, as well as his master of professional accounting and MBA before joining the Miami Business School faculty in 1990. So he's definitely been around the block here, and super happy to have you. So thanks for joining, Seth. Greatly appreciate it. He's also a senior lecturer for the online Master of Professional Accounting program and a senior faculty member for the Becker CPA exam review course, making him a strong resource for all of his students. So I want to go ahead and turn it on over to Seth just for a moment here so he can give you a brief introduction, and then we can dive into some questions that we have for him.
Tori, thanks for having me. Yes, as Tori said, I've been around here at the U forever. I was here in the early 80s when we kind of got our football program going on the right track, and was actually classmates with Jim Kelly and Mark Richt, our current coach. But in the early 80s, went to school here, got my bachelor's degree, and finished up, and then continued on, earned a couple of master's degrees along the way. Worked in public accounting, worked for a couple of different accounting firms, Price Waterhouse before the merger with Price Waterhouse Coopers. So I'm a CPA. I joined the faculty, as Tori mentioned, in the early 90s. I was an adjunct for about 10 years, meaning I just taught part-time, but I've been full-time since 2001, and the director of the UOnline program for the Master of Professional Accounting, which has been going on now for about 3 or 4 years. So we've got quite a few students who've already matriculated through the program and have graduated and have pursued and passed the CPA exam. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about what makes our program different than other programs that you guys might be considering.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Seth. Definitely greatly appreciate having you here again. And, I'm sure you can provide some excellent insight on our potential applicants or anyone really just thinking about accounting. And, there's so many different things you could do. A lot of times people often associate accounting specifically with things like CPA, but this is not always the case. So definitely want to just get involved right in our questions here. I mean, I know you have a lot of resources to provide for us here. So with that being said, Seth, what are the opportunities for accounting graduates in the current job market at this time?
Well, the accounting job market has only continued to get better and better even since I was a student. There's so many jobs available out there. I hadn't thought about it much until recently, but in a way, it's one of these professions that's kind of kept up by the government. The SEC requires that every publicly traded company has to put themselves for an audit, which means to check or to verify the financial statements. So we've got this huge accounting profession kind of led by the big four accounting firms, Price Waterhouse Coopers. I mentioned already KPMG, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, and then some other also really awesome large firms that kind of round out the Global Seven. That's BDO Seidman, Grant Thornton, and RSM. And so they're all big employers of the University of Miami, of our graduates, and really they can't hire enough of us. If we could double or triple the number of graduates, they'd hire all of them. They love to hire our graduates. Our graduates do very, very well in the workplace, working in their audit or assurance practice, or of course in taxes. It's another, the government requires we got to pay our taxes, we got to file our taxes. So taxes are a big part of the accounting profession. But the biggest part is, even outside of audit, assurance, and tax, it's consulting. So a lot of the accounting firms are looking for graduates and employees with their firms to actually give advice to their clients and to help them to do better in the workplace, to compete with their own, the companies that they're competing with. So every year it just seems like it's growing and growing and growing. And there's no unemployed accountant unless they want to be voluntarily unemployed. But
right.
and usually that might happen after a while when they want to retire. So there's just so many jobs galore. And as Tori mentioned, not just in public accounting, but in private industry. We have, for example, here in South Florida, lots of big employers like Carnival Cruise Lines, Royal Caribbean, Ryder, Office Depot, Florida Power and Light, which is one of our biggest companies. So they're all looking for our graduates either right out of the program. Sometimes they'll hire from these public accounting firms, but very often they're looking for entry-level people or even experienced people to go to work for them. And then, as Tori mentioned, besides public, besides private, there's the government. So you've got federal, state, local, city governments, voluntary health and welfare, charities, hospitals. So, in a way, we're like cockroaches. Accountants are everywhere, right? And you can't get rid of us. But there's a need for accountants in all of these businesses. And so we find that a lot of people kind of see the light. They maybe major or get a degree in something else, and then they realize, you know what? I kind of like accounting. I'm good with numbers. But more importantly, I'm good with people. And it's a combination of those two things that make for a good accountant.
Great. Well said, absolutely. And, I think that it's got to be music to the listeners' ears, right? Knowing that the job market is definitely flourishing. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And it's just kind of dependent on, where you want to go within the industry. And ultimately, our faculty and our enrollment team here, and, this is where we're on the position to kind of help you, lead you in that direction. So, whether you want to be private, public, whatever the case is, there's multiple opportunities out there. And, it's great to be able to connect with you, Seth, to, be able to provide some insight on, what else is out there besides just that CPA designation that a lot of people are familiar with. Otherwise, there's just so many different things you could do. So referring back to CPA, though, because I'm sure a lot of the listeners, want to hear specifically how that correlates with our program. How does the online Master of Professional Accounting prepare students for a CPA exam?
So obviously the candidates can kind of look through our course sequence and get the details that makes up the program. The first four courses, Accounting 681, 682, 683, 684, those four courses, if students just wanted to sign up and get a certificate in accounting, accounting is the language of business, and so this would kind of make students to be financially literate. Even if they didn't want to go through and do the whole master's program and just kind of do half of it and stop, there's a certificate. So the first course really is an introduction to financial and managerial accounting. So you're looking at the financial statements from an external perspective, but then you're flipping gears and kind of looking at it as if you're a manager so that you can understand budgets and forecasts and projections to help your own company to do better. The second course ramps it up a little bit. It's much more on intermediate accounting, getting into the rules that we follow, like U.S. generally accepted accounting principles, but also international rules that we call international financial reporting standards. The third course is on taxes. Everybody's got to understand taxes. Anybody that's paying attention these days knows that there's been the biggest changes that affecting taxes maybe since the Tax Reform Act going back to 1986. So taxes it's kind of a monumental change going on right now. So we're on top of that. We update that course every single year. We actually teach it. One of our teachers here is an expert on tax. She actually writes the textbook that we use for that course. And then the fourth course is one on accounting information systems. So whether it's QuickBooks or Peachtree, you kind of have to understand the systems that are putting the accounting information together. So just those four courses are a lot, and if students wanted to jump off there, that's fine. They'd have a certificate. But then we have another four courses, one on financial statement analysis, which really almost kind of borders with finance. If you want to learn a little bit more about finance, even in your own 401k, if you're trying to decide, as we have, we're living through stock markets that are going up and down 500 points from day to day. If you want to just be more financially literate to make better decisions for your own portfolio, so that your 401k doesn't turn into a 201k or something like that, right? And then we've got a course on auditing, external auditing, internal auditing. We have another course on cost accounting, and then finally a course on advanced accounting. So Tori, to go back to your question, how does this help you with the CPA exam? So we did partner. Tori mentioned that I've been teaching for the Becker CPA review course, and I've been with them for almost 30 years. So we actually looked at some of the other schools, like, for example, Wake Forest or Auburn, who have really high CPA exam pass rates, like in the 90% range. And we looked at them, and we here at the University of Miami said, gee, one of the things that we noticed is that they are very strictly partnered with the CPA, with Becker. So we decided to do that. So about 10 years ago, we partnered, the University of Miami and Becker partnered together so that our students, once they're in this program and once they finish this program, we piggyback and we put them right into the Becker CPA review course. So now our pass rates, as you can see there on the screen, almost 80% versus the national average. So we are, getting closer and closer to these elite programs in terms of helping them to pass a CPA exam, often on their first try.
Excellent. So would it be safe to say that, students that go through this program, Seth, that ultimately coming out of it, they, if nothing else, have a solid foundation to approach and take the CPA exam?
Absolutely. I mean, because the program is already, into its third or fourth year, we've had lots of graduates who've already gone through. They've done the 4 courses. Maybe their intent was just to do the certificate, but then they liked it. It whet their appetite for more. They did the other 4 courses. They got the degree, and then they said, okay, well, that's maybe still not enough. I realize as I'm maybe looking for jobs or I'm looking for a promotion in my current job that my boss wants me to have the CPA. So if you're going to do the master's with a little bit more work, you can go ahead and sit for and pass the CPA exam. CPAs make $1 million more in their lifetime. When you figure if you work for 40 years, the average salary is usually about $20,000 to $25,000 a year more than non-CPAs. So it really makes sense to go ahead and pursue that. It doesn't have to just be about the CPA. I mean, you don't have to work in public accounting if you're a CPA. It's just kind of the gold standard that gives you a lot of credibility in the workplace, whether it's, even if you don't want to stay in public accounting. So there are other credentials that this program could lead into. There's something called the CMA, which is a certified management accountant, which is more if you want to do the track to, hey, I want to be a controller, and then I want to be a CFO, and maybe even a CEO. So if you kind of look at a lot of CEOs these days and you kind of reverse engineer and figure out how they got there, many of them, almost most of them, before they became CEOs, they were CFOs first, they were controllers, and a lot of times they did have the accounting or finance background. So there's a lot of credentials. One of the more popular ones now is the CFE, which stands for Certified Fraud Examiner. So it's all about, unfortunately, white-collar crime and identity theft and identity fraud, and companies need to make sure that they're safeguarding their assets, which means their employees, which also means their customers. So all that information needs to be very, very protected. So we also actually offer 2 elective courses at the end of the program. One of them is on fraud and forensics, and another one is on just government and nonprofit accounting, since a lot of students end up in government and nonprofit fields.
Wonderful. And I mean, it's actually ventures us right into our next question. I'm glad that you mentioned some of the other opportunities in different types of accounting certificates. And I'd like if you can elaborate a little bit on that. I mean, in regards to, what else is out there, not just CPA, and how does that impact the job opportunities and earnings as well?
Right. So, the more credentials you have, the better it's going to be, the more money you're going to be able to make. So the CPA kind of is the gold standard. And so sometimes when students come to me and say, well, I'm thinking about the CPA versus the CMA, or the CPA versus there's even a credential called the CIA, a Certified Internal Auditor, that our program would prepare you for. We discussed the CFE. So there's actually something called a Certified Forensic Accountant. There's a chartered financial analyst, which is maybe more finance targeted than accounting targeted. So sometimes students ask me, which one of these should I get? But there's nothing like the CPA. You could always do another credential after the CPA, but we do kind of build this program for success on the CPA, even if students don't, like we said, stay in public accounting and eventually maybe want to pursue one of those other credentials. Even if, aside from these credentials, we try to let students know that it's important to be bilingual, but that doesn't necessarily mean language bilingual. Everybody kind of thinks, at least here in Miami, that everybody's bilingual, and that's certainly not the case. So if you can pick up another language, however you're going to do it, whether it's through, software programs or whatever, that's always very, very important, because that's going to make you much more employable. But when I say bilingual, I don't necessarily mean these languages like English or Spanish or Chinese or whatever, but it might just be computer languages. So as Talis mentioned, a couple hours ago when talking about the MBA, it is important that students know computer languages. Our employers say that they wish that our students had more Excel. And whether it's Excel, whether it's Word, whether it's PowerPoint, it probably transcends that. It probably goes into Access and even programming. If you can, take courses on programming at some point, whether within the program or outside of the program, because it all does go back. We have an advisory board. So we have a 21-member advisory board, and this advisory board helps not only our ground-based students, but our online students. So the accounting department has a 21-person advisory board. All the big firms that I mentioned, all of the big private industry, even the governmental agencies, even like the IRS, the FBI are represented. So they all come, and we always ask them, look at our program. What is it that our program's missing? And it's not that our program's missing anything, but it seems these days all about analytics, accounting analytics, business analytics, data analytics. So they want our graduates who are free thinkers, who could look at information and be able to help the company to decide what to do with this information. It's turning the data into information. So this goes back to knowing QuickBooks or Peachtree. And if you know these accounting software programs, even like TurboTax on the tax side, if you know these programs, maybe the company that you're interviewing with doesn't exactly use those programs, but they know, gosh, if Johnny or Jane knows these programs, they could very easily learn the programs that we're using.
Right, definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. You have to be well versed, right? And I think that goes without saying. And earning the education in the Master of Professional Accounting is just one aspect of it. I mean, it's certainly going to prepare you, for sort of what the expectations are. But when it comes down to it, you got to, kind of get yourself out there and, learn as much as possible. And I think that that's great advice for our prospective students and, anyone just kind of considering the field. So I do have a couple questions actually that came in here from some of our listeners. So let me go ahead and get to some of these, Seth. I think you can provide some excellent insight on there. So we spoke a little bit about the different options of the Master of Professional Accounting, the certificate options. Now, why would you recommend somebody to pursue the Masters rather than just going out and attempting to sit for a CPA exam on their own or something of that nature?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, most states require the equivalent of a master's degree, even though it might not be a master's, but most states require that in order to become a CPA in the state, and whether it's Florida, New York, California, there might be 5 states or so that don't require it, but chances are the state that our prospective students are in require 150 total credit hours to become a CPA. Now, a lot of states will let you sit with 120 credit hours, but some of those, or a lot of those, have to be in accounting. So really this master's degree kind of accomplishes that. Instead of for somebody that maybe did finance or economics or something that was other than accounting, and now they say, I want to do my CPA, you've got to take these classes. Now, you could do them at an undergraduate institution, you could do post-bachelor's work, but why go ahead and do those bachelor's classes and maybe get a second bachelor's degree when you could actually get a master's degree in the process? So this is a very creative program. It's not a very common program, but it's essentially bachelor's kinds of classes, but ramped up to the master's level. But almost every state, like Florida, New York, California, Texas, the big states, Ohio, do require, at least, like, for example, in Florida, it's 24 hours of accounting. So this is a 32 credit program, so it more than accomplishes that goal. In Florida, it's actually a 120, 150 state, so you could sit with 120, but some of those credits have to be in accounting, which means that unless you got most of these courses in the program, you're not going to be able to sit for the CPA exam in most states.
Definitely, and thank you for that insight. It's important to know that, for our individuals out there, and always, refer back to making sure that you're aware of what the state requirements are, because, as this program is offered nationally and internationally, our students want to sit for the CPA exam in a bunch of different places, and there's always going to be, little things here and there that may differ from the requirement standpoint. So just make sure that if you are one of those individuals wanting to sit for the CPA, you familiarize yourself with the exact requirements, because we do want to make sure our program here is going to align so you can, ultimately go ahead and pursue that CPA. Now, Seth, you did mention something in your last answer. Greatly appreciate it. And you mentioned about individuals that may be coming into this program without a background in accounting. So how would that differ then from those that come in with a degree and those that don't necessarily have the background?
Well, the ones that come in with a degree obviously have a little bit of a leg up because they've taken some of these courses before, like the first one, for example, which is an Intro to Financial and Managerial Accounting. Chances are a lot of students have taken that course before at the undergraduate level, but that's a good first course to take just to kind of refamiliarize yourself. Some of our students might have been out of college for a couple of years. And accounting is not static. It changes from year to year. There's always new rules. There's new things happening all the time. So that first course is a good course, whether students have experience or whether they don't have experience. But then all the rest of the courses, even for students who've taken them before, look, the tax class, it's all new because a lot of things have happened in the last couple of years with the new administration, whether it's president or Congress or whatever. We've got a lot of new rules. In intermediate accounting, we've got like this convergence between U.S. rules and global mobile rules. So things have changed there. Even in the auditing profession, things have changed. So the good news for the students who've not taken accounting before is we're kind of not assuming that you have, and we're kind of starting it from ground zero so that students are not going to be overwhelmed. Even though this is a fast-paced environment, it really is primarily geared to students who are changing and haven't had the accounting before. Yet for those students who've had the accounting before, they'll find it a little bit easier, but much of the knowledge is going to be new. The other beauty about the program is, I'm so old, I've been around for a while, and I know all of the nuances with almost all of the states. So we are, these classes are not huge. We like to pride ourselves on getting to know all of our students one-on-one. So all of our professors in the accounting program and in all of our programs, we're very accessible. We give you our email addresses. We give you our cell phone numbers. We either do structured office hours or unstructured office hours. So I like to talk to all of my students even before they begin the program and then while they're in the program, because maybe there's somebody in California, there's somebody in New York, and I can direct you to the people in Becker to kind of help navigate the whole CPA exam process. We also have a program director named Daniel Medina. He's also a teacher in the program in the fraud course, but he's our internal accounting department program director. And while he spends most of his time with the ground-based students, he also works with all of our online students, especially those of you who might be looking for jobs at some point during the process. So he acts as like our internal headhunter, and even though you have resources like Topple and Ziff, a lot of our online students work directly with Daniel and myself to find out, okay, where do you live, if you're local, if you're not, and kind of put you in touch with employment opportunities in those locations.
Excellent. I think that, kind of solidifies what we've been mentioning throughout these webinar sessions today, that the faculty are readily available and they want to be able to help. So, at no point in your time here as a UOnline student should you feel like you're disconnected from anyone. As Seth mentioned, he gives you his cell phone number sometimes, or email address. So you can really pick these guys' brains and really, get a sense of kind of what they've done to get to the point that they're at today, and how you can sort of, maybe follow a similar path or an alternative path, and they can help you, lead you in that direction. So the support is absolutely there. I think we can't stress that enough, and we want all of our online students to be aware of that as well, that the resources are available, so take advantage of them, and that's the most important part. I think you spoke on this a little bit, but I hope you can elaborate just a little bit further, Seth, about the mentorship and the career support that we offer. In your experience, what can you speak on about that?
With respect to the job market or the resources we have for students?
Yeah, I would say a combination of both, the job market as well as, kind of what you guys do to make sure that these students are prepared to enter the career field.
So Daniel and I work with one-on-one. Also, Professor Mario Perez, he instructs a lot of courses with me, and he's also been with Becker for 20 years and works with them in their academic support capacity. So we do get to know the students, especially the ones that maybe are looking for jobs while they're in the program or at the end of the program. So we'll have them come in and we'll meet with them during our regular office hours if they're local. If not, we'll set up Skype sessions. So usually Daniel Medina is the first stop, just so that he can assess. He's got a big whiteboard in his office, and he puts up, let's say the members of our advisory board who are looking for people and positions they have available, and then the candidates who are looking, and he's trying to match them up. And obviously this is at no cost to either side. And then if we need to, we'll reach out to the Ziff Placement Center, which is right in our building where we are in our physical building, but they're the ones who kind of work with our MBA students and some of our graduate students. And then if necessary, we also work very closely with Topple, which is the undergraduate part of the university in terms of their placement center. So it's kind of a, triangular approach there, and we all know one another. And sometimes we can handle it ourselves with an accounting. Sometimes we'll reach out to Ziff and Topple. Maybe there's an issue with resume. Maybe there's an issue with interviewing. So there's just, all sorts of resources between all three of us.
Excellent. Collaboration, right? And that's what I get out of that is everyone is really working together here. It's a well-oiled machine, if you will, where everyone is, kind of brainstorming off one another, again, to make sure that this program is a good fit for where our students are looking to go with it. So, definitely great to hear that from your perspective and know that those options are available and those resources are out there for you. So we spoke a little bit about this as well. I think we have time for maybe about one more question. You had mentioned, obviously we spoke a lot about the CPA, right? And you also had mentioned some other skill sets that you would learn. So outside of just, specifically CPA, just in general, beyond that aspect of it, what type of skill sets, or rather just skills, is this program, going to teach our students? What can they do with it, when they graduate, if it's not just CPA related?
Yeah, if it's not, so CPA tends to imply public accounting, right?
Right.
A certified public accountant, you're going to work in auditing or in taxes or doing something for the accounting firms. Maybe you'll open up your own accounting firm. So we do have, this is also, as Talis mentioned, it's probably the best major, let's say, for an undergrad, even though we have an entrepreneurship major. I think accounting, being by virtue of being the language of business, when I talk to business owners, they all say, gosh, I wish I had more accounting when I was in college. Especially when I talk to lawyers or doctors, they all say, I'm running my own business, but I wish I had more accounting. So I think that this opens up a lot of options outside of public accounting, whether you're working for somebody else's business, helping their business, or whether you're planning on maybe becoming a franchise owner one day, and you're a franchisee and you're opening up several franchises and trying to run that business. So it really just transcends. We realize that a lot of our graduates maybe don't stay in accounting for their whole work career. They might do it for a few years and then end up doing something in the world of finance, in the world of economics, or maybe in the world of marketing or management or something altogether different. So it just opens up a lot of doors, gives a lot of opportunities, but ultimately kind of helps you to understand the quantitative part of the business. But really, it's about becoming thinkers, and even social media, I think, is really a part of this, and that's involved in every business as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's super interesting to hear that, you speak to a lot of people that say that. Specifically, I wish I had a little bit more accounting background. And, I think that this program here, it definitely solidifies that as well for those that want that background. And like you mentioned, can definitely help propel you in numerous directions. It's not siloed in one area. And I think that's the most important part that we can get out of this conversation here is that, don't sell yourself short in one specific area, because you may find once you get into the program that you're interested in auditing or fraud or whatever the case may be. And, your faculty and professors are here to help lead you in that direction if that's the career that you choose to pursue post-graduation. So, I think that's about all the questions we have right now. But Seth, I'd love for you to, if you can offer some advice to our listeners here of, those that are thinking about accounting, that, what I would say is what you would recommend for them to, sort of the mindset that they should have going into this program to be successful.
I know Talis spoke similarly about the MBA program, but I think that the key to success is certainly being proactive, right? These are very condensed courses, 7 weeks. All of a sudden, as soon as it starts, it's over. So it's, we're very ambitious. There probably is about a 25 to 30 hour a week commitment. So you do have to be very smart with your time. We try to help you when we work with students, and this is about flexibility. So if students fall behind, we certainly work with them to help them catch up. But I think a key is being proactive. Some of the courses you're going to just gel with, and you're going to feel like, oh, I'm a natural with this and I'm getting it and it's clicking. Some of them you're maybe going to struggle with. Sometimes it's a left brain, right brain kind of thing with a level of creativity or analytical skills or whatever it is. But the beauty is, you're with a cohort. In many cases, you see some of the professors, again, that you had early in the program, later on in the program. But it is a cohort. It is a family. Everybody's trying to help out one another. But there's definitely that sense of, sometimes getting frustrated and needing to kind of work through something and just kind of be dedicated in order to be successful.
I mean, amazing advice. And I think, anyone that's listening can definitely take that and, kind of think about that as you're thinking about going to graduate school, right? I mean, I know sometimes it seems like, oh, yeah, I just want to get my MBA or I want to get my professional accounting degree, but you really have to know what goes into it, and you really have to be mentally prepared and I would say also passionate about it, right? I mean, right. You got to want to be able to do this, and you got to want to know this side of the business if you're looking to get into the field of accounting. So with that being said, I mean, Seth, thank you so much for being present here. Love having you. It's great to hear from that side and from the faculty and your perspectives on the program. So thank you so much. And this is actually going to bring us to the end of our session and the end of our open house for the day. So I want to thank all of our listeners and all the audience that have been in attendance. And again, thank our faculty members. And Seth, you did an excellent job here.
Thank you.
And all of the, faculty, students, alumni, everyone that spoke today, I just want to extend my gratitude out to you all. We definitely appreciate it, and appreciate everyone that's been listening in and submitting questions throughout this webinar. So as always, we'll sign off with a final note here. If you are interested in learning more about our programs, or if you just want to have a chat about what's out there and what we offer here at the University of Miami, give that number a call, the 800-411-2290. You can speak with an advisor. They'll definitely be able to answer your questions for you and dive a little bit deeper into these topics as needed. And of course, you can always visit our website for general information, which is the welcome.miami.edu/online. So thank you again to everybody. I appreciate the participation, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope that you all learned some excellent information here about the University of Miami today. Thanks, and take care.
Well, to you.